And preceding the G20 Heads of State Summit, which will be taking place this weekend, was the G20 Social Summit, which had concluded yesterday. Participating in that was government of all the member states that are participating in the G20 working groups, as well as civil society organizations. The Social Summit is often seen as the moral element and the ethical compartment of the G20. And to join us to speak more about it now is the chairperson of the Civil 20 working stream, Thulani Tshefuta. Thulani, good evening. Thank you so much for your time. Really do appreciate it. Civil society spent a great deal of time discussing what they think an ideal world would look like and in what ways civil society and governments can work together to bring that world about. Like I said, the social summit is meant to be sort of the moral centering of the G20, and civil society plays a big role in achieving that as well. Are you happy as the chairperson of the C20 with the outcome of the G20 Social Summit?
Thank you very much, Oliver, and good evening again today. As the leadership of civil society and the whole of civil society, we are truly elated by the manner in which we proceeded with the social summit up to its conclusion. On day one, we had the opening sessions. On day two, we spent the whole day in five thematic group discussions that were panel beating some elements of what was to be consolidated into a declaration. And we are glad to report that we managed to emerge with a declaration that was agreed unanimously, which declaration was ultimately handed over to the President of South Africa, who is also the President of G20. Of greater importance for us is the fact that when South Africa took over the presidency of G20, it promised to lead a people-centered G20. And so the establishment of these various engagement groups that existed, having their own engagements culminating into the social summit, represented the leaders of civil society, grassroots organizations from community level, where some of the communities may have never thought that they may participate in G20 processes, but were actually in the flow of the G20 Social Summit. And so essentially, as you suggest, the G20 Social Summit represented the voice of the people, it represented the conscience of society, it represented the plight of the people, and that which we say, what is it that the governments that are organized under G20 should listen to and heed as a call to action by the people?
Do you think as a result of that, that the voice of the people, as you dub it, will be adequately reflected in ultimately what becomes the declaration at the end of the Leaders and Heads of State Summit?
We have all the confidence at this point, because you must remember that that level of influence will not start and end with the declaration of the social summit having to be presented by President Ramaphosa as he promised in the social summit today. There have been various engagements throughout the year where civil society engagement groups have been meeting with government engagement groups or working groups, where we have been having those discussions about what do we think are the essential policy proposals that governments must have a look on. And so graduating from that level, this is only the culmination of that process. And from what we have seen as outcome statements of the various working groups of governments, we have the confidence that the synopsis of what is entailed in our declaration of the social summit stands a good state or a chance of finding expression in the outcome statement of the Leaders Summit that will be taking place on 22 and 23 November.
What was at the heart of the social summit declaration?
There was a dedicated focus on what we may call global change drivers, with a dedicated focus on digital inclusion. There was a focus on one pillar of trade and inclusive value chains. One of the areas of focus was on climate change and just energy transition. We also ventured into issues of finance and debt. We also had discussions that were positioning collaborative efforts between government, civil society, and development partners to build the momentum for the achievement of the noble goals that are entailed in the Sustainable Development Goals and Agenda 2063. And most essentially, we submitted proposals on how we can break the cycles of poverty as experienced by the Global South.
Yeah, and so the political world, which is the force behind what makes those declarations to be adopted by the member states, and for that to translate into the ratification of their local policies, the legislation, and how that begins to drive the force, drives the change that the dedicated summit would have envisioned, is something that is often missing from what are typically dubbed multilateral talk shops. And we hope that the G20 is not just one such instance and institution. Do you believe that the political world, particularly from the Western powers participating in the G20, is sufficiently there to drive the sort of change that the Social Summit Declaration seeks to achieve?
As civil society, we challenged the governments of G20 that they must enter into the Leaders' Summit and not massage each other's egos at the expense of the plight of the people. We challenged the governments of G20 to enter into the Leaders' Summit and combine their heads in finding solutions to the genuine challenges that citizens of the world are confronted with. In that spirit, we believe that the creation of space for the people to be represented through civil society to raise their proposals is a step in the right direction in expressing that political will. Secondly, we believe that the fact that the president of G20 took time to engage with structures of civil society and even hosted the social summit is the expression of that political will. Thirdly, we believe that in all our civil society processes, we have had consistent participation of all G20 countries and beyond. And we have been challenging each other that it is incumbent upon us as country representatives of civil society to nudge our governments in the direction that supports the development trajectory that has been presented on the agenda of G20 by South Africa.
Yeah, and just lastly, there's been a lot of talk from the US not participating and then saying we sort of will, and then the president of South Africa saying not like that, and you know, come to the party altogether, don't come at all, and then very importantly saying we'll not support a statement or a declaration around the themes of inclusion, sustainability, and of course that being a controversial point for Donald Trump. Do you believe that, again to the political world question, that this particular G20 summit, which is dubbed G20 at 20, will be able to leave a lasting legacy in the world? And do you think that South Africa has sufficiently been able to do that?
We think that all role players have been able to canvass the support of all G20 countries behind a development agenda, which has been sponsored by South Africa on the table of G20. Secondly, we have been calling for building of confidence and trust between governments of G20 and citizens of the world through the implementation of legacy projects, such that even in the most rural of areas in South Africa, there can be those legacy projects where people can say, indeed, through our country hosting G20 and the continent as a whole, we are able to see projects that are as a result of those deliberations that took place in G20. Thirdly, we have challenged the president of G20 and all other countries of G20 never to hinge the success of this summit on individuals and personalities as to who attends, who does not attend. We believe that they must enter into the summit and engage on the strength of the policy proposals and the evidence that supports those policy proposals on the table. And we believe that, and we are making this call very strongly, that at no point should the needs of the people depend on who is in power today or tomorrow. It is an agenda that must be time-tested in such a way that whoever becomes a leader can indeed bear testimony that those who met through all the processes of G20 in South Africa in 2025 took the right decisions. And therefore, unfortunately, in this case of G20, unlike other multilateral platforms, like the United Nations, no country holds a veto. They are all equal parties who should enter into the room and battle it out as a battle of ideas and win the day, not on the contestation of which country is winning over who, but who is winning the day in the best interest of the people. And therefore, we believe that as there is a fracas happening as to who is attending, who is not attending, we must be alive to the fact that some of these countries started by saying they will not attend, they will downgrade their participation, and then they will consider something, or there will be no declaration. In all honesty, someone must make it make sense that on one side, you withhold your participation. On the other side, you say no declaration must be done without us. It means that you are saying the lives of the people must come to a standstill until you decide what you want to do with them. And therefore, we are calling on all governments of G20 to enter into that room and speak in one voice in resolving in the support of the declaration that we believe will actually emerge out of that Leaders Summit.
Yeah, Thulani, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much for your time. Really do appreciate it. That is the chairperson of the Civil 20 Working Group, Thulani Tshefuta.